Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back in another video. Today I want to talk about the Logitech G Pro X Superlight 2 DEX. Honestly, I was excited for this because I feel like Logitech finally came back. I feel like they kind of fell off really hard. I was a huge fan of them since the Logitech G Pro Wireless. I even had their keyboards, but they ended up not having, rapid trigger on their keyboards. They ended up not having like high polling rates or optical switches. They were just really falling behind. And I feel like they finally caught up because the new mouse, they have not only ergonomics, or you can call it an ergo mouse, which they never had before, but they also have 8K polling now, which they finally caught up. And so I feel like this is a really interesting and good product. And I feel like it's kind of a turnaround point for Logitech going forward, where they're not really behind anymore. In fact, I feel like in some ways they're more unique than what's on the market currently, which is kind of interesting to say. But I feel like the DEX to me is really a good turning point for Logitech, and yeah, I actually like this mouse a lot, and let's kind of talk about it. All right, so we have the Pro X Superlight 2 DEX, even though there wasn't a Superlight 1 DEX, but that's probably because they based it off the Superlight 2. And yeah, this is the box. Take a look. You can open your mouse like that and pop it out very unelegantly like me. That is also the way. I got the black. It's been a while since I bought a black. Maybe I should have gotten the magenta, but magenta doesn't really look good with my setup, but it would have been different, I guess. All right, so with all the mouses side by side, I feel like the main ones I want to talk about is obviously the DEX versus the Logitech G Pro Wireless, which is obviously the kind of the OG, right? This is what it's made from, or I mean, I guess you can call it Superlight, so the different changes between these two mouses. And then I want to compare it to the Logitech G, I guess 403, but they call it the 703 if it's wireless. This was actually my first gaming mouse, so I am very familiar with this mouse, and it was my main mouse for like, I think like over 4 years. And it was also my first gaming mouse, so I'm very familiar with that shape. A lot of people wanted this shape to basically be the DEX essentially, but they end up going with a different shape that's more reminiscent of, I guess, Death Adder V3 Pro. It's a lot taller. It fills up your hand a lot more. So I would also do comparison to Death Adder V3 Pro, and then we also have some other mouses here that we'll just, comment on. So the first question is, how's it different from like the original Superlight type shape? And really, you can see these side by side. They're really taller on the left side because this is a right-handed mouse, right? And this top point is a lot taller than the Logitech. Pretty big difference. It's really high. You can definitely feel it. And so, I mean, that's kind of the characteristic of a ergo mouse. And then obviously it kind of slopes down, and it's a lot kind of, I guess, lower on this side versus, it's an ambidextrous mouse with the old one, so it's a little higher. So you can definitely feel that shape. But the other thing is obviously this thing has the, I guess you can call it the ergo flare, which is kind of, it's a lot fatter right here. So I honestly find myself coming from like an ambidextrous mouse like this into this, I can actually feel this part kind of, I guess, hit my kind of thumb right here a little bit more. And so really this kind of shape is honestly flared out a lot more than I expected. It's not really a safe shape. It's just, it kind of just committed fully into the ergonomic shape. So I definitely feel this kind of part kind of grinding against my hand, which I'm just not used to because I've been using too much ambidextrous mouse. But, that is kind of the support that people expect when they're using an ergonomic mouse. And of course, it also has a flare on the right to give you just more kind of palm support. So really, this mouse in general just feels like your hand a lot more. And I think that's kind of the reason why people want an ergonomic mouse. And I feel like they definitely achieved that with these kind of different shape versus, as you can see on the older Logitech, you can see that, obviously this doesn't fill up my hand as much. This is kind of a little bit more chill. And, you're kind of definitely holding on to something a lot slimmer, a lot more, I guess, shapeless, but a little bit easier to hold if you're kind of using a claw grip, I think. So this really is, a palm grip type of mouse for sure with the DEX. Now, this in comparison, I guess, to the G703, which is what, a lot of people wanted the DEX to be, I honestly kind of like the G703 shape a little bit better. I think the main reason is right here. You can see that the hump of the 703 is just, I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's really tall, even taller than 703. I thought the 703 was a huge mouse, but the DEX is almost bigger. Like, it's kind of crazy that it's actually a longer mouse, I mean, when I look at it, it looks longer and it's also wider and it's also taller. So in a sense, I feel like the older 703 was almost a more safe shape than the new DEX. The DEX is really just committing to that like bigger kind of more filled out, I guess, hand feeling. Because if you look at the 703, even my hand kind of glides a little bit above and there's a little bit more space. I feel like it kind of is a little bit more chill right here with a little bit more palm support in the back, which is a little bit taller. And I always found that this hump maybe was a little too aggressive, but I would still enjoy this part a lot more. I feel like for the DEX, I just feel like my hand does clash a lot right here. It just feels super big, super tall. But at the same time, I guess it's very comfortable if you want to feel your hand the most, right? So I feel like that is a good thing. And then the back being a little bit lower than the 703, I do feel like it does kind of feel a little bit more comfortable right here. It doesn't really seem to like punch your, I guess, palm a little bit more. I feel like that's what happened to me after a while using the 703. But really, I feel like those are the biggest changes from these two mouses. And yeah, I think I think this DEX is just a more ergonomic mouse than even the 703. I feel like the 703 was a more, almost slightly less, I guess, ergo mouse, a little bit more gentler. This is actually a more aggressively leaning. And I feel like the reason why, honestly, is if they didn't make the DEX, I guess, full on ergo, it would probably feel too close to the original Logitech G Pro Superlight. And so I feel like that's why they kind of just leaned into the ergoness, in my opinion. Now, compared to, the competitor, which would be Razer, right? So Razer has a similar mouse. It has optical switches, 8K polling, all the similar specs. When it comes to this mouse, I feel like the difference is honestly the size. I feel like the Logitech one is actually smaller than the Razer. The Razer is just made for people with gigantic hands, honestly. This mouse is just absolutely massive. It's also just really tall, but honestly, even the Logitech one is tall, but it's still not as tall as the Razer. The Razer is like just head and heels above. I always felt like it was a little too tall. I always felt like my hand kind of just, you can see the palm just kind of lift up more, where I feel like the Razer, the Logitech, my hand is just closer to the kind of ground. And I feel like I like that a lot better on the Logitech. So at least for my hand size, I feel like the DEX is better for medium-sized hands versus if you just have massive hands, then the kind of Razer Death Adder V3 Pro really is probably the better choice. And then the other kind of differences I notice is really the slope. The slope is definitely more, I guess, aggressive and downwards on the Death Adder than the DEX. The DEX kind of has it just a little bit more gentler, so it kind of supports you a little bit more. So I feel like in general, I feel like the DEX might be better in that sense, but then I feel like the flare right here and how fat, I guess, the back of the mouse is just really fat. This is the only way I can describe it. I actually prefer the shape of the Razer. I feel like it kind of is less intrusive right here on the mouse. It doesn't kind of collide with me as much as kind of the DEX. It just, it kind of just pushes really hard into my hand that I'm just not used to. So in that sense, I do like the kind of Razer, but with actual like sensor performance and how they feel, honestly, they're very, very close. I'd probably lean slightly towards the Death Adder V3 Pro as being slightly, I guess, more responsive, but I mean, it's a really, really small difference, honestly. I think most people are not even going to notice it, so really not too different. All right, so what are the features of this new DEX, right? So the thing that I notice is, the 8K polling on this is real 8K. It feels really good. And I definitely feel how snappy it is. I actually tried it using 1K on this, and I felt like the 1K was actually not too bad. It didn't feel that much slower, but you can definitely notice the kind of more, I guess, snappier, more responsiveness of the 8K. So the 8K definitely makes a difference on this mouse, and I definitely enjoyed that part about it. Now, the thing that I noticed about this mouse that was, I guess, maybe more unique about this mouse is definitely the scroll wheel. The scroll wheel is honestly pretty crazy. I mean, we'll do a sound test, but basically the scroll wheel makes like no sound. It's like very silent compared to like other mouses in its category that are much more like clicky in general. You can definitely hear that the Logitech is just very, very silent on the scroll wheel. I really like it. I feel like it's very spammable, very quiet, almost like unusually quiet. I feel like that's the most unique feature about it. And when it comes to the actual click quality, I feel like they're very tight and very snappy. I honestly really like it with that kind of mechanical click type of snap to it. Versus the Death Adder is just more traditional. Honestly, it almost feels more locked in almost. Maybe because it's new, but really they both are very fast, very snappy. I think for Logitech, this feels like honestly the most snappy Logitech I've ever felt. And it's actually pretty impressive of how well they tensioned it, to be honest. So I feel like that's pretty impressive. And then we have the good old side buttons. The side buttons, honestly, comes to the side buttons, honestly, I feel like they aren't much different than before. I still prefer the Death Adder ones. They're just a little bit snappier. They stick better. This one just has a little bit more, I guess, plush. Definitely a lot more travel for sure, and takes a little bit while to rebound. So I definitely prefer something like the Death Adder for the side buttons, but really this is pretty normal for Logitech. Honestly, it's pretty standard. So let's talk about the other features about the Logitech I feel like that make it actually unique compared to competition. So obviously it has 8K polling, it has optical switches, which is pretty much top tier. So you really have all the specs you want on this mouse, but this thing actually has what they call light force hybrid switches. Basically, they are both optical and mechanical. So a lot of people complain about the optical switches. They don't like the way they feel, the way they sound. And so I feel like Logitech kind of combined them both in theirs, giving you that kind of a snappier and kind of that more, I guess, kind of bouncy type of feeling to it and that sound to it that a lot of people will probably like. But the other benefit of this is also the fact that mechanical switches are actually, they are more power efficient. They use less energy versus using optical switches using light, and they use, more energy. So it actually gives you better battery using their kind of hybrid switches. You can actually change this to just purely optical if you wanted to in the software, but it's nice to know that you can actually save more battery with this mode. Logitech is definitely focused a lot on power efficiency for their mouses, so you can basically use them longer while they're wireless, right? And I feel like it's really an added benefit that they focus on this. Now, the other thing about this is it has power play. Now, a lot of enthusiasts aren't going to care, but I feel like these features are actually going to be underappreciated, and these features will actually make this mouse stand out compared to its competition, because a lot of these companies don't have hybrid switches. They don't have power play, which basically means you can play this on a Logitech mouse pad with that support, and it can charge your mouse while you're using it. So I mean, that's kind of cool if you don't want to charge your mouse. And then this thing still comes with a little cover on the bottom where you can literally stick your dongle to store it in here, which is honestly just really nice, right? But this also brings us to kind of another point about this mouse, is that it's using a small dongle for 8K. Literally, this little dongle supports 8K, which is just insane. A lot of different of these other competitors use bigger pucks in general, while this is just using just this teeny tiny little USB, which is really cool. So the size of this being able to do 8K is pretty ridiculous, and the fact that you can just store it inside of this is also really nice. So you don't have to carry around a lot more bigger things and a cable and stuff. This thing really just is all inclusive and giving you just a really, really nice portability without losing your dongle. So really, I think that's really going to be underappreciated by a lot of people, but I think this is really something that is kind of unique on this mouse, because most mouses nowadays, they don't have that, right? Like literally all these mouses don't have the ability to do that, and they're all wireless. So that ability is technically just a lot more useful, a lot more, I guess, easy to use. And I feel like all these features that I'm talking about are not really going to be appreciated by enthusiasts, because they really only care about specs and weight. They probably like mouses like this a little bit more because they're the lightest weight mouse, and they have, I mean, I guess this doesn't even have 8K. This thing was promised to have 8K like over a year ago, and it still doesn't have 8K. So I guess this mouse still kind of beats it in that sense if you want top tier specs. So, it's very interesting when you think about it in that way. But really, I do think that this mouse definitely has the advantage for the portability, the ability to kind of, keep your dongle in there, the light force switches, the power play. It sounds dumb to say that if you're an enthusiast, but honestly, these are convenience factors that a lot of people are going to consider. And honestly, the competition doesn't have it.
That's just the truth. But this also has, like I said, optical switches, 8K. It's also pretty lightweight. It's like 60 grams. So really, it's not the lightest weight thing. Like this is 40 grams, but it's still really, really light. And I don't think anyone's going to complain that it's heavy, honestly. So this really has all those plus more. And because of all of that, I feel like this thing just has unique features that actually set it apart from the competition, and it actually separates it apart from even a lot of clones of different mouses, because it does more than all those mouses, to be honest. And then also inside the box of the Logitech, they also obviously give you the DEX. You have this little dongle. You know, a lot of times I actually didn't understand why they gave you this, but now I do. The real purpose of this is that you can actually put this on your table, and then it'll be closer to your mouse so you can get the best connection. That's why they provide a cable and this kind of dongle, so you can get the kind of closest, I guess, distance to your mouse to have the best performance. But obviously you don't technically need it. You could just plug this into your PC or your laptop, but the extension cable will help you with just your connectivity and having optimal performance. Anyways, if you guys are interested in picking up the DEX, I'll be leaving links to Amazon down below. So really, it's a very good mouse. It also has, you know, the Logitech warranty and everything. So for me, I definitely recommend this mouse if you're looking for an ergonomic mouse. It definitely fills up your hand really well and really fulfills the role of a ergo mouse. Anyways, I hope this video helped you guys. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.